Just as a quick heads up before this video gets started, we know we said we would do the Hangzhou Spark for this video. However, we went with the Valiant because of the roster drop, and we thought it would be easier just to cover a team who has all brand new players directly from contenders, rather than going over a team with a huge roster size. So what we decided to do is, since the season starts this Friday, we wanted to put the last 16 teams into 2 videos and cover 8 teams each video and just pump through that before the season gets started so we could change our video structure for when the season starts. And then we'll be having different forms of videos out then. Alright, and now on to the video.
Hello and welcome to Overwatch Database and another 2021 Overwatch League team preview, this time featuring the Los Angeles Valiant. So the Valiant have had pretty decent success in the league. In the inaugural season, they didn't live up to expectations. However, they weren't bad by any means, and they actually were able to build a pretty big brand and fan base, which is impressive for a team that wasn't exactly top tier. Fast forward to last year, and they actually exceeded expectations and had a very solid finish. Then there's this year's team, which is frankly an embarrassment to the organization. They dropped all their players and coaches on the 29th of January, and that really upset a lot of people, mostly for the fact that they did it after the rest of the league had signed full rosters, so they totally screwed their players and coaches from finding any jobs this year. As far as I know, only Shax from that team has been signed, and he was picked up by the London Spitfire. And by doing this, I know a lot of fans have been going to other teams, and the Valiant have kind of lost all that branding they've worked to get the last 3 years. So now they've announced their 2021 roster a few weeks ago, and we're going to break that down for you and kind of give you an idea where this team stands. And we will start with the tank line like normal. Before we get too into it though, this will be kind of a shorter preview than normal because like I said, they just announced this team a few weeks ago and it's a completely new team. Most of the team has no Overwatch League experience, so there's really not a crazy lot of stuff to go over because we don't really know a lot. So without any further ado, we'll get into it here. And they have 3 tanks on the roster that they signed. Like most of this team, there's pretty much no Overwatch League experience. Actually, there is none. So we'll get started with the tank line here. They signed 3 tanks, I believe 2 main tanks and an off tank. And like most of this roster, there's no Overwatch League experience here whatsoever, which is like a big red flag for me right off the bat. I think that they're going to really struggle to adapt coming from contenders to Overwatch League. You integrate a player from contenders to Overwatch League, and usually he's surrounded by other people that have AL experience. Well, this is not going to be the case. These 3 tanks are just going to be thrown in by themselves to figure it out, and that's going to be a big problem, especially when these aren't, we're not talking about top-tier contenders players either, so that's really a problem. So the main tanks are Silver3 and NvM, and they actually have really overlapping hero pools, so I'm not really sure why they picked both of these guys up. I assume it's so that one struggles, they have a backup option, which I think is good actually. I do like that they did that. And then the off tank is going to be ShowCheng, and ShowCheng is probably the most interesting one on this roster, at least in the tank lineup. He actually played main tank in 2017, and then he transitioned to a DPS player when the Overwatch Contenders China Season 1 started, and now he's transitioning back to off tank for this team. And I'm not really sure how well that's going to work out. I have a lot of concerns about that, mostly because he only has experience, at least in the pros, playing main tank. So I'm not sure why he was the guy that they got to play off tank. My kind of theory, I guess I shouldn't say mine, I think this is a lot of people's theory, is it's just what they could get. I think a lot of people didn't want to play for this team. I know one of the players that was asked to join this roster was Dia, and he flat out just said, I don't want to join this roster because I don't think they're going to win a game. He didn't put it exactly like that, but that was essentially what he said, because he was part of that 0-40 Dragons team, and he himself is actually a good player, but being on that 0-40 team almost destroyed his career. It didn't, but most of the time that will. So why sign for league minimum and play for this team? You're not going to probably win, and ruin your career in the process. He was like, I'll just sit out the league this year. And I think that's kind of the problem here. I think this is kind of all they could get. And I really feel for these guys, I know I'm being really negative about it. I want these guys to succeed. I just think it's going to be a struggle. I don't really have anything else to really add about the tank line, though. As I said, ShowCheng doesn't have really any off-tank experience, so I don't know what he's going to play, so I can't really go into detail there. And then NvM and Silver3 pretty much both play Winston, Reinhardt, Orisa, so they have really overlapping hero pools. So before we move on to the DPS line, Connor, do you have really anything to add to that?
There's not much to say. I do agree with you that the lack of experience will be detrimental to the team, and who knows how that's going to end up, but maybe they'll surprise us, maybe it'll be as expected. We don't know.
Right, absolutely. I do hope they surprise. So moving to the DPS line, there's only two. That's going to be Krystal, and I don't actually know how you even say the other one, MoLanran. I'm just going to say that, and that's close enough. So Krystal is very interesting. A lot of people know him. He played for the Hangzhou Spark a couple years ago, and he was actually pretty decent. But he ended up leaving the league kind of by his own choice, kind of not. It was a really weird situation. I'll just kind of recap it for people who don't know. So, as I said, 2 years ago, he played for the Hangzhou Spark, and during the middle of the season, he informed the team, hey, my mom is sick. I gotta go home and take care of her. So they granted permission. He flew home to take care of her. Well, then I don't know, maybe it was a couple weeks after that or something. It came out. His mom was not sick, and this dude was just chilling at home with bros, hanging out, while his team was, playing, and he was just collecting a paycheck. And I believe the Spark took legal action against him because, they didn't want to pay him his salary when he lied and left and wasn't, playing, doing his job. So that kind of happened, and he really hasn't been in the league since then. I didn't actually think we'd ever see him in the league again. He did play on a contenders team last year, but I really assumed no Overwatch League team would give him another shot. The Valiant have, and again, I think that's kind of like what I said about Dia. I just don't think anybody wants to come play for this team. I think people expect this team to be so bad that it would just be a career killer to play for them. Because even if you're a really good player, if you're on a garbage team, people won't look twice at you most of the time. And it's really hard to salvage your career after that. Dia really was one of the only ones. Him and Fearless were the only ones that were able to salvage their careers from that 0-40 Shanghai team in Season 1. And then the other DPS, MoLanran, I don't know anything about because, again, he comes from contenders like most of this team. I know he's actually played some tank and healer in his time in contenders. And then I believe his most, known DPS roles are Pharah and Sombra. So I actually do like the flexibility that he provides. Because he can even play other roles if they need him to. And I think that's great. They'd obviously have to pick up another DPS to do that because they only have two right now. But I do think that is actually really good. But I don't know how good he actually is. I really like how flexible he is with the different roles. I think him being able to play support and tank and DPS, as he's played all of those in contenders before, is great for the team. But they would have to obviously pick up another DPS, as they only have two, for him to be able to flex to those. But I do think that is a great thing. And, again, I don't know how good he is, though. He could be able to, he could be flexible, but be average or below average. Really just don't know. And then moving over to the support line, there's Highbee and Wya. And Wya actually does have some Overwatch League experience. He played a few times for the Guangzhou Charge last year. And I'm really glad to see that there is somebody else on this team with a little bit of experience up there. Highbee, however, does not, but he has been in contenders for like 3 years. So he has been around the scene. I think I've actually heard that he's decent. Unlike most of these guys where we don't know, I do think he's actually pretty good. He actually played a lot of tank in contenders as well. So he's also another one that's really flexible. I believe Highbee will be playing the main support for this team, kind of from what I do know about them. And Wya plays a lot of the more, flex supports, Ana, Zenyatta, stuff like that. Actually, looking at this, both of the supports have playtime as tank and contenders, so that's really interesting. I'm not sure really, this roster is just really a hodgepodge of flexible but maybe only mediocre contenders players. So I don't really know how they're going to perform. They might actually overperform expectations. But I mean, let's be realistic here. Overperforming expectations for this team will be like 2 wins because they're still, unless everybody just turns out to be amazing, this team is just going to be really bad. And I do feel bad for the players that, that they're put into this spot. I think that the organization has not set them up to succeed. And if anything, whether you're a previous Valiant fan or you're just a casual fan or a fan of a different team, root for these guys. Root for these players to win. You don't have to root for the organization. I get it. A lot of people have a strong distaste for them right now, for the just whole Valiant brand. But root for these guys to succeed. Maybe a couple of these guys can pop off and get jobs next year on other teams. That would be great. So I really do encourage that, despite all the negativity I have around the roster as a whole. Moving on from the supports to the coaching staff, it's also a big area of concern for me because of the inexperience. Carries over to the coaching staff too. I believe you say it JCat or JPCat, I'm not sure, is the head coach, and then Heiko is the assistant coach, and they have no experience coaching in Overwatch League. They have coached in contenders, so it's not like they're moving from players to coaches or anything. They do have experience at the job they're going to be doing, but it's not on a big stage like Overwatch League. And that is also a concern for me. But I really hope these guys succeed and turn out to be great coaches. I just, like the rest of the team, you just have to wonder. There's just so much inexperience. Can they overcome it all? I actually feel like this roster will struggle early, but as they gel, they will get a little better. So that's one thing they have going for them. But the season's only 16 games, so that's going to be a little difficult. I guess before we do a tier rating, do you have anything you want to add to that, Connor?
Overall, for this team, I don't really have any opinions on them because we haven't seen them play in the league yet. And just judging off of the entire roster being brand new to the league and very little experience, from what I can gather right there, I don't think they're going to do that well. But like I said when we were talking about the tanks, maybe they'll surprise us. Who knows?
And, as far as putting this team in a tier, I don't think there's anywhere we could really put them but D tier just because of that inexperience, and we really don't know what they're capable of. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, if there's anything lower than D tier, I would want to put them there. But the thing is, we're only doing an S through D tier, so they're going to have to go into D tier, just like the Titans have been, but on a different level of D tier. This is more of they're completely horrible based off of what we've gone over D tier, not okay, we don't think they're going to do that well because of, their stats and everything, D tier, and their team setup. So that's where I think I stand on that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. And, like you said, I want to second that whole thing about them and Vancouver. I think this team is on a whole different level than Vancouver. I know we put Vancouver D tier, but I actually believe they can be better than that. I think their DPS can carry them to a few victories. I don't feel that way about this team. There's the Vancouver Titans at the very top, of the D tier, like D+, that have the potential to actually overperform versus this team. I mean, this team is at the bottom. They are going to be like, I don't want people to think I think this team can finish higher than Vancouver. I don't. That will not happen. I don't think this team honestly will win a game. I wonder how many maps they're going to win. I know that sounds crazy, but does this team win more than like 5, 10 maps all season? Because I really don't think they do. And again, I hope they do. I hope they prove me wrong. But that's just, my initial... I'm gonna say, I'm going to give a hot take because I haven't really... feel like I haven't really done that yet. I'm going to say this team only wins 3 maps. Not games, 3 maps all season. I know that sounds like really low, but I actually don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
No, I don't think it will be that bad. I would give them at least a few more wins than that. Not just on the maps, but, overall wins.
You really think they'll win a few games?
I think they might. They might.
Okay, fair enough. I think we're definitely a little far apart on that one, but fair enough. So I think that's all we have for the LA Valiant preview. Like I said, just kind of keeping it short. There's only, so much you can go over when there's so little experience on the roster. You can kind of just give initial impressions. So I think that's all we have for the LA Valiant team preview. Like I said, just keeping it short with how little we have, knowledge we have about this team. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. We'd love to hear how we're doing, how we can improve, all that stuff. We appreciate the feedback. Just to give you guys a little sneak peek for the next one, we're going to be doing the Washington Justice team preview. I highly recommend tuning into that one. That team is going to be crazy good, or at least they look crazy good. And I'm really excited to talk about them. So we'll see you next time.